Russia's economy has hit hard times before, and they did some insane things to survive. Just before the fall of the Soviet Union, the communist state was so desperate for Pepsi that they traded the American beverage companies some 20 warships for a shipment of their sugary elixir, making the Pepsi Navy the sixth largest in the world at the time. On Friday, Ukraine called out Pepsi and fellow soft drink maker Coca-Cola on Twitter, saying that Coke had chosen to side with evil by choosing to continue distribution within Russia following its invasion of Ukraine that began last week. It's unclear whether or not Ukraine is aware that the Soviet Union once outfitted Pepsi with a fleet of their own. It's unclear whether Pepsi will heed Ukraine's wishes and add to the growing list of nations and corporations levying economic and commercial penalties on Russia, its president, and other prominent oligarchs. But while Pepsi considers its future with the increasingly isolated Russian state, let's take a look back at how Pepsi and the Soviet Union handled business the last time Russia's economy was in similarly dire straits. The Pepsi Navy. In 1959, just 2 years after the first intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM, test forced both the U.S. and Soviet Union to reassess their approach to nuclear deterrence. Then Vice President Richard Nixon and Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev both attended the American National Exhibition in Moscow's Sokolniki Park. As the two men exchanged barbs about the efficacy of each nation's respective economic model, head of Pepsi International Donald Kendall decided to break the ice with a few small cups of their namesake soda. As luck would have it, the Soviet premier was immediately smitten by the sugary, carbonated drink, and a deal was struck for the Soviets to begin receiving shipments of the beverage. Pepsi had secured the first such agreement between a capitalist American company and the Communist Soviet Union, but there was one serious problem. Soviet money was effectively useless outside of the nation's borders. But while the Soviets may have lacked hard currency, they did have something else to trade: vodka. So Pepsi and Khrushchev made a deal. Pepsi would provide shipments of soft drinks, and in return, the Soviet Union would provide vodka from their state-owned brand Stolichnaya, for resale in the United States. For a bit less than a decade, the agreement between the Soviet Union and Pepsi stood without any issue, but in 1980, geopolitics soured the deal. The Soviet Union had invaded Afghanistan, and the American people responded by boycotting Soviet-sourced products, including the Stolichnaya vodka. Pepsi was getting in trade for their soda. Within a few years, Stolichnaya sales had dropped enough for Pepsi to no longer consider the deal worthwhile. But the Soviet Union's love for America's second-tier cola was too strong to let the deal lapse, and Soviet officials began looking for other ways to reimburse Pepsi for shipments of soda. By 1989, they had a solution. In exchange for Pepsi's soft drinks, the Soviets offered them a veritable navy. Pepsi agreed to the deal, taking possession of a Soviet cruiser, a frigate, a destroyer, 17 submarines, and a handful of oil tankers, instantly making the drink distributor the owner of the sixth largest navy on the planet. But despite that significant bragging point, the newly established Pepsi Navy was far from battle-ready. The fleet of submarines was in a terrible state of disrepair, with many listing to one side and nearly all of them showing signs of serious rust. The surface ships in Pepsi's new navy weren't in much better shape, with perhaps only one that was truly seaworthy and at least one other that required constant pumping to keep it afloat. Nonetheless, the United States government wasn't particularly pleased to see a corporation suddenly command enough naval firepower to square off with some entire nations. Pepsi's CEO, Donald Kendall, who had first introduced Khrushchev to the beverage, responded to America's complaints with all the aplomb one might expect from the admiral of Pepsi's navy, reminding the Pentagon that he had just managed to reduce the number of ships at the Soviets' disposal by a considerable number. "I'm dismantling the Soviet Union faster than you are." Of course, his comment may also have had something to do with the Soviet people's love for his capitalist product. A number of things ultimately led to the downfall of the Soviet Union, including Ronald Reagan's efforts to spend the communist regime into oblivion and later, Mikhail Gorbachev's glasnost policy of more open governing, but it's tough to dispute the effect products like Pepsi had on the Soviet populace. Shortly after taking possession of the Pepsi Navy, the soda brand sold all 20 warships to a Swedish scrap recycling company in order to recoup the cost of their Pepsi shipment. Russian stock market closed for the fourth day due to war in Ukraine issues, the Russian stock market will stay closed for a fourth consecutive day, according to a statement from the Russian central bank. It comes as Russia faces continued serious financial woes, with Russian citizens lining up to withdraw their savings from major national banks across the country and sanctions from the United States and Europe putting major pressure on oligarchs and businesses alike. Late on Wednesday, the Bank of Russia said that stock and derivatives will not continue trading on the Moscow exchange on Thursday, with very limited exceptions. Russia, uninvestable, U.S. finance company and index compiler MSCI Inc. announced on Wednesday that Russian stocks would be removed from its influential indexes that track emerging markets. The decision was made as a result of the closure of the Moscow exchange, which stopped global investors from being able to sell their Russian holdings. In a statement, the firm said that asset owners, asset managers, broker-dealers, and major exchanges have said, with an overwhelming majority, that the Russian equity market has become entirely uninvestable. Russian securities will on March 9 be moved to a standalone market category as opposed to emerging markets. Russia will be deleted from all FTSE Russell equity indices effective from the open of Monday, March 7, the statement said. Investors trapped in crashing market. The decision to close the Russian stock market was one of several moves made by the Bank of Russia designed to protect its currency. On Monday, the central bank raised interest rates from 9.5% to 20% in response to the value of the ruble crashing. The Bank of Russia also resumed purchasing gold on the domestic market. By the third day of the closure of the Russian stock market, it was the longest closure since October 1998. Britain's Telegraph newspaper also reported that over £1 billion in investors' money was trapped in Russia after JP Morgan and other asset managers suspended funds operating in the Russian stock market. Investors are effectively locked into the crashing Russian market, with the KPM Emerging Europe Equity, JP Morgan Russia Equity and JP Morgan Emerging Europe Equity funds all suspended indefinitely. Jack Buckby is a British author, counter-extremism researcher, and journalist based in New York. Reporting on the UK, Europe, and the US, he works to analyze and understand left-wing and right-wing radicalization, and report on Western governments' approaches to the pressing issues of today. His books and research papers explore these themes and propose pragmatic solutions to our increasingly polarized society. Russia's economy is in serious trouble. How will Putin strike back? Russian President Vladimir Putin just declared that Western sanctions on Russia for his brutal invasion of Ukraine are akin to a declaration of war. And, so far, it is easy to understand why. Multinational investment bank JP Morgan Chase County has warned that Russia could be on track for an economic collapse that will compare to, or even rival, the 1998 economic crash in the country in the wake of its debt default. Speaking to clients on Friday, JP Morgan economists said that they predict Russia will experience a 7% contraction in gross domestic product over the next year. Other banks made similar predictions, too, with economists from Goldman Sachs and Bloomberg Economics predicting a GDP drop of 9%. That's almost double the 5.3% GDP contraction seen during Russia's 1998 crash and debt crisis. At this stage, the only hope Russia may have is that the United States, under Biden's current energy strategy, can't afford to continue increasing sanctions against Russia. In fact, the American economy is already feeling the impact of this military conflict in terms of gas and energy prices. Over the last week, gas prices have risen by 23 cents. On Friday, prices rose by 11 cents over Thursday, which constituted the biggest single-day increase since 2016. Blinken resists energy sanctions on Russia. On Friday, Secretary of State Antony Blinken fought to stop a push for energy sanctions on Russia, suggesting that any sanctions on Russian oil or natural gas would hurt the United States more than it would Moscow. His comments come after U.S. legislators expressed support for slashing imports on Russian oil, with Democrats arguing in favor of replacing oil and natural gas with green energy and Republicans arguing in favor of replacing Russian oil with increased domestic production. The sanctions are designed to have maximum impact on Russia and Putin while minimizing harm to us and our partners, Blinken told the press. There's no strategic interest in reducing the global supply of energy. The immediate effect, he said, would be an increase in the price of gas at the pump, and that the United States is already making strides to undercut Russia's future as one of the top providers of energy in the world. Blinken May 5.